am back again with this book. Today, I am reviewing this book called Borrowing Brilliance. It's by an author called David Cord Murray. And the funny thing is, he's not a very widely known author. So, here are the three reasons I want you all to read Borrowing Brilliance. First of all, as the title actually suggests, the book actually gives you enough number of examples and a framework using which you can borrow without guilt. Did you know that in the Middle Ages or the times of the Renaissance, people used to borrow freely from each other's ideas and actually build upon it? Of course, we're not talking about taking someone's ideas and passing it off as our own. We are not talking about that kind of stuff, but we are actually saying we need to stand on the shoulders of giants, as Isaac Newton once said, borrow others' ideas and synthesize our own and come up with a totally new solution or an idea. You don't believe me? Well, this book is full of stories and examples. Isaac Newton borrowed from Kepler's laws of motion to actually come up with his laws of motion. In fact, Kepler's laws of planetary motion to come up with his own laws of motion. So, point number one, the book actually gives you a framework to borrow and synthesize, which means it gives you permission to borrow. If you think I'm kidding, and go back to one product that possibly has taken the world by storm, which is the phone, the iPhone with a touch screen. And in case you've been living under a tree or in a cave, you will know that Steve Jobs did not invent the touch screen. Touch screens are of two types. Before I get too technical, there is a resistive screen and a capacitive touch screen. Touch screens existed even before the iPhone came into existence. But what actually made the iPhone special was the use of capacitive screens. So Steve Jobs neither invented the iPhone nor did he invent the touch screen. But we all still consider Steve Jobs a creative genius. So therefore, you have to borrow because nobody has dry ideas in isolation. So that's one of the first things. The second thing is the book gives you a framework. Now that it has told you this is how you can borrow, this is how you can create, the book gives you a 6-step framework. In fact, what I love about this framework is all through the book, the author takes you through his own creative exercise. He's worked on a few ideas and he's actually working on one single idea, which is about filing returns or preparing tax returns and simplifying it, and in the process, launching a product that would make the lives of millions of people better. The beauty of it is he follows the framework, and towards the end of the book, he actually shows you how he applied each step of the framework. And the thing is, he ends up creating a multi-million-dollar business as a result of following this framework, which is why I like it. So it is super practical, it is highly relevant, and you could either read 25 books or 40, 50 books on the subject. You want me to tell you what some of those are? Edward de Bono, who's written books on thinking, lateral thinking, the thinking course, Think Before It's Too Late, Edward de Bono's course. There, Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow, and Clayton Christensen's The Innovator Solution, the Innovator's Solution for Healthcare, or Jim Collins. I can reel off book after book on innovation, but what will actually help you is this book, because this book comes with down-to-earth stories. Let me give you a little bit of a backstory, a story about innovation with you, which is very close to my heart. I read this about 20 years ago, and it has still stayed with me. The name Edwin Land might not immediately ring a bell, but stay with me. Edwin Land and his daughter went on a picnic, and they ate, they played games, they took pictures, and then they were about to finish their picnic and come back, and Edwin Land's daughter asks him, "Daddy, I want to see the pics now." So Edwin Land tells her, "No, sweetheart, you can't see the pics now because we have to go back to the studio, go to the dark room, develop the pictures, and only then will you be able to see the pictures." But his daughter is adamant. She asks him, "Daddy, why can I not see the pictures now?" What we do commonly is we actually justify why something cannot be done. Edwin Land actually started thinking. He started asking himself why it was not possible to see pictures. So he embarks on a project, and lo and behold, today we see Edwin Land's creation as Polaroid. Now, the Polaroid camera, which is still popular today, eventually gave way to what we see as the digital camera, and then eventually cameras in our phones. So today Polaroids have become as tiny as a chip, but the chip doesn't produce an immediate picture, but you can see it on the screen. So that is the power of innovation. Do we want to be someone like Edwin Land, someone like Steve Jobs, someone like Einstein? This book is a great guide to actually get there. When we think of people who changed the world with their creativity, a lot of names pop into our mind. Names like Steve Jobs, Albert Einstein, Charles Darwin, C.V. Raman, J.C. Bose, who are all Indian scientists. But when we think of them as creative people, and we tell ourselves there is no way in the world that I could be someone as creative as them. And if our desire to be creative is a little more stronger, we dig in a little more and say, okay, I could never be original like them. And that stops us from being creative, or even thinking of beginning to be a creative person. Or sometimes we think, hey, if I don't get any original ideas, so therefore I'll have to borrow or I have to copy, and therefore I cannot be a creative person. And that's where this book comes to our rescue. There are a lot of books on innovation and creativity, and they're shrouded in jargon. They are shrouded in complex frameworks. They analyze the industry, they analyze the segment. I've read hordes of them. Nothing to take away from any of those books, but I am always on the lookout for books that are really, really practical. And in my words, the author must have written the book, been there, done that, and bought a t-shirt. If you don't know what that is, that's just founder speak. So what I'm trying to say is, if I recommend a book, that book has to be practical, it has to be useful, and the author themselves must have put that book to use. It is one thing to recommend a framework to someone else by observation, but it's a totally different thing to have implemented every single one of those things and then see whatever you've recommended having produced the results that you want to produce. Once you've borrowed, once you've combined, you are actually feeding it to your subconscious. And then he shares a few other techniques about judging and then synthesizing. So I'm not going to reveal the rest of the book to you, but I've used this word masterclass extensively, although at the cost of sounding over abusive of the word. I have to say this book is deceptively simple, but it is very much a masterclass in innovation, in evolving into a creative person. And the beauty of it is he uses very interesting anecdotes all along the book to give you an example, and draws a parallel with his own problem, his own innovation problem that he's dealing with, and walks you through it. I think he's done a brilliant job of writing about innovation and creativity, and also more importantly giving us the permission to borrow, synthesize, combine, and come up with something that is truly our own. I cannot do justice to that book obviously in this review. That's not the intent of this, but go read this book and trust me, put it in. If you're me, you're possibly going to highlight practically most of the book, because that's how powerful this book is. The 6-step framework is not the only thing. There are a whole lot of associated techniques around the 6-step framework that will allow you to evolve into a creative person. So if you are someone who's long dreamt about being a creative person, and you have found all the other books either too complex or too full of jargon, or maybe have concepts and ideas that probably go over your head, as we normally call it, this book is for you. It's simple, it's practical, it's written in everyday language, and if you apply it, you can definitely be another creative person. So this is what the book is. Go enjoy and come back and share with me how you liked it and what problem you solved. And this is Krishna Jonakadla, host of Maharajas of Scale, and signing off.